Male desire is one of the most misunderstood forces in psychology. Society talks about it endlessly, yet rarely with honesty. It's portrayed as something simple, primitive, or purely physical. Men are told their desire is a biological urge, a natural drive to pursue and conquer. But Carl Jung saw something much deeper. He believed desire wasn't just about attraction or reproduction. It was symbolic. It revealed the soul's deepest hunger, the longing to become whole. In Jung's view, every man carries within him an inner feminine, what he called the anima. She represents the emotional, intuitive, creative dimension of his psyche. The anima isn't a literal woman. She's the image of femininity that lives inside a man's unconscious mind. When a man meets a woman who reflects his inner anima, something powerful happens. He feels magnetized. It feels cosmic, destined. But the truth is, he's not falling in love with her. He's falling in love with himself, projected outward. She becomes the mirror of what he's missing inside. This is the truth most men don't want to hear, that the woman they crave might only be a reflection of their own unlived soul. The more unconscious a man is, the more he mistakes projection for love. He becomes enchanted by her presence because she awakens the forgotten parts of himself. But instead of integrating those parts, he attaches them to her. He believes she completes him, that without her, he is nothing. And this is where desire turns dangerous. Because what starts as love becomes dependency, and what feels like union becomes control. The modern man, disconnected from his emotional depth, often turns desire into a form of escape. He chases women not to connect, but to forget, to silence the inner void he cannot name. Jung warned that what we repress inwardly returns as obsession. When a man refuses to face his loneliness, his longing, or his emotional vulnerability, those unmet parts begin to surface as hunger. He starts seeking in women what he has denied in himself. That's why many men move from one relationship to another, chasing the same high. It's not women they're addicted to. It's the temporary illusion of being whole. Jung believed that desire in its pure form is sacred. It is libido, not just sexual energy, but the life force itself. Libido is the creative energy of existence. It drives everything: love, art, growth, and transformation. But when this energy is trapped in the lower psyche, it becomes lust, greed, and addiction. The goal is not to suppress it, but to raise it, to transform raw longing into awareness. When a man becomes conscious of his desire, he stops being controlled by it. He learns to channel it into creation, purpose, and meaning. Yet modern culture doesn't teach men to integrate their desire. It teaches them to perform it. Society tells men to chase validation, to accumulate conquests, to prove masculinity through attention. But what looks like power is often insecurity. Behind the mask of confidence lies fear. Fear of rejection, fear of inadequacy, fear of being unseen. Jung would call this the persona, the mask men wear to survive in society. It's the version of self designed to impress, but not to feel. And when the persona dominates, the real self fades. In this split, desire becomes distorted. Instead of expressing love, it becomes a performance of dominance. Instead of intimacy, it becomes consumption. Many men live their lives trapped between repression and indulgence, either denying their desire to appear moral or drowning in it to feel alive. Both are extremes of unconsciousness. Jung's message was balance, integration, not suppression. He taught that a man must face his desire with honesty, neither worshipping nor fearing it, but understanding its roots. The roots of male desire, Jung believed, lie in separation. Every man carries an unconscious memory of unity, the time before the ego divided him from the whole. He spends his life trying to return to that state of connection. The longing for women, success, or meaning is, at its core, the longing to reunite with the self, the totality of who he is. But most men mistake this spiritual longing for romantic or sexual craving. They try to fill an inner emptiness with outer attachments. The tragedy is that no one outside can fulfill what is missing within. When a man projects his anima onto a woman, he is unconsciously saying, "You are my missing soul." This projection gives her immense power. She becomes the source of his happiness, his confidence, his worth. But no human can carry that weight for long. Eventually, she disappoints him, not because she changed, but because his illusion broke. When the projection fades, he often feels betrayed, angry, or heartbroken. In truth, he is not grieving her. He is grieving the part of himself he refused to see. Jung described this collapse as withdrawal of projection. It's painful, but necessary. Only through it can a man begin to meet his real self. When he stops seeing women as saviors or enemies, he starts seeing them as mirrors, reflections of his own psyche. And when he integrates his inner feminine, when he learns to feel, to listen, to trust his intuition, he no longer seeks completion in others. His desire becomes conscious. He can love without losing himself. Modern psychology calls this process individuation, the journey toward wholeness. It's the integration of all parts of the self, both masculine and feminine, light and shadow. For men, this means confronting the emotional side they've been taught to reject. It means allowing vulnerability, not as weakness, but as authenticity. When a man honors his feelings, he reclaims the energy he once projected outward. He no longer needs to chase, perform, or possess. He becomes magnetic not through power, but presence. But shadow work is uncomfortable. It requires confronting one's own darkness, jealousy, insecurity, lust, and fear. Jung said that no tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. A man who refuses his darkness becomes controlled by it. The man who explores it becomes free. Most men run from this task, choosing distraction instead. They drown their pain in pleasure, status, or noise. But the unconscious does not disappear. It waits, demanding to be seen. The longer it's ignored, the louder it becomes, through failed relationships, emptiness, and burnout. Desire is not the enemy. Unconsciousness is. When a man doesn't understand his desire, it uses him. He becomes impulsive, restless, reactive. He seeks stimulation instead of satisfaction. But when he learns to observe his desire, to sit with it without acting, something shifts. He realizes that desire is energy, not command. It's not ordering him to act, it's inviting him to understand. This awareness transforms lust into insight. It turns chaos into clarity. There's a quiet strength in the man who understands his longing. He doesn't chase, he doesn't repress. He feels, reflects, and chooses. He recognizes that the pull he feels toward others is also the pull toward his own evolution. Every attraction becomes a message. Every heartbreak becomes a mirror. He stops asking, "Why did she leave?" and starts asking, "What was I meant to learn?" That shift marks the difference between emotional boyhood and psychological adulthood. Jung saw relationships as alchemical, the meeting of two souls meant to transform one another. Attraction isn't random. It's the psyche's way of initiating growth. We're drawn to people who awaken our unconscious. That's why love feels like madness. It's the eruption of buried emotions. But if a man doesn't integrate that eruption, he'll keep repeating it. He'll confuse chemistry with destiny and passion with purpose. Real love begins when the projection ends, when the fantasy collapses and the truth remains. This is the truth no man wants to hear, that his desire will destroy him if he doesn't understand it. But if he faces it with awareness, it will rebuild him. Desire is both the wound and the medicine. It breaks you open, but through that breaking, it reveals your depth. The more you resist it, the more it controls you. The more you explore it, the more it evolves into purpose. This is what Jung called sublimation. The process of transforming sexual or emotional energy into higher creativity and insight. Sublimation doesn't mean suppression. It means refinement. It means taking the raw energy of desire and using it to build something meaningful. Art, ideas, compassion, or vision. The greatest men in history weren't those who killed their desire, but those who learned to channel it. They turned longing into legacy. Their passion didn't consume them. It guided them. This is the sacred task of every man, to turn instinct into intention and possession into presence. Society, however, makes this difficult. The world feeds on unintegrated desire. Advertising, media, and even politics exploit men's longing for validation and control. They sell substitutes for wholeness, wealth, status, approval, that only deepen the emptiness. Jung would say, we live in a collective projection, where the outer world mirrors our inner disconnection. Until men reclaim their inner feminine, their emotional intelligence, empathy, and intuition, they'll remain easy to manipulate. They'll keep chasing symbols instead of substance. Healing begins when a man learns to sit in silence with his desire, when he no longer needs to prove or perform, when he can say, I feel longing, but I am not lost in it. This awareness dissolves the ego's grip. He begins to experience desire not as need, but as connection, a reminder of his capacity to love. He stops seeing women as validation and starts seeing them as fellow travelers on the path of self-discovery. Love becomes collaboration, not consumption. Over time, this awareness reshapes his relationships. He stops being attracted to chaos or fantasy. He becomes drawn to authenticity, women who challenge his mind, not just his senses. The old patterns of addiction fade because he no longer confuses excitement with love. He learns that peace is more powerful than passion, that stillness can hold more intimacy than drama. His desire matures from conquest to communion. This transformation changes his entire being. He becomes quieter, but more grounded, softer, but stronger. People can feel it. The energy of a man who desires deeply, but clings to nothing. He has learned the art of balance, to want without grasping, to love without losing himself. Jung called this the integration of opposites, the merging of masculine and feminine energies into one harmonious whole. It is what all desire secretly seeks, unity, not possession. When a man reaches this state, he finally understands what Jung meant when he said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Love was never meant to fill the void. It was meant to awaken consciousness. Desire was never punishment. It was invitation. Each longing, each heartbreak, each obsession was a step towards self-knowledge. So the truth no man wants to hear, but must, is this. You are not chasing her. You are chasing the lost parts of yourself that she represents. The woman is not your salvation. She is your reflection. And when you learn to love the reflection within, the obsession disappears. What remains is freedom, the kind of freedom that feels like still water, deep and calm. Male desire is not sin. It is signal. It calls you toward integration, toward truth, toward your higher self. It invites you to rise above instinct and into awareness. And when you finally accept that invitation, you discover something profound. That what you sought in others has always lived inside you. That is Carl Jung's message to men. Desire is sacred, but only the conscious man can hold its fire without burning. Only the aware man can turn it into light.